I spent a couple hours on YouTube every day, and that got me thinking, how did our ancestors cope without it? I mean, what did they do all day? So today we're imagining a world where YouTube did exist since prehistoric times, and making 3 different videos from 3 different time periods, starting with Neistat as a caveman. Now, I have a couple different video ideas to choose from. How make fire, me eat every mushroom, me hunt lion, and cave tour. I think I'll go with me hunt lion, because that would be such a fire vlog, but the thumbnail is going to be difficult to execute. I'll start with this field, and my idea is to have Casey sneaking up on a lion with a spear in his hand. Luckily, I found the perfect picture to start with, and I'll use a rough outline of the lion to get an idea for the positioning. Then I swapped out the field because I didn't like it, changed the color of the grass, and perfected the framing of the scene. To make it look like the caveman's actually in the grass, I used a mask to fade away his legs, and I'm tired of looking at him in his underwear, so I'm gonna grab a loincloth to put there instead. That's better. And now for the star of the show, Neistat. First off, cavemen obviously didn't have sunglasses, so I'll have to find a good picture of Casey without them. And here it is. I'll cut that out and put it over the body. I'm also gonna warp the perspective slightly to make it fit well. One of the main problems with this picture is that Casey's looking the wrong way, so I'm gonna cut out the pupils and move them to face the lion. Now I need to fill the space where his pupils used to be, but everything I do looks a bit weird, so I'm just gonna come back to that later. In the meantime, the loincloth has been bothering me, and I figured out why. The mask that I made cuts off the lines in the fabric. To fix that, I'll use Liquify to warp the cloth around his legs, and to make it a bit more realistic, I'll paint some shadows on the cloth and underneath on his body, and that looks way better. Next, I want to make everything a bit more cohesive, so I'm going to change the lighting on his body and face to match the lion's. Basically, we're picturing the sun shining on the right with shadows forming on the left. Next, he's far too clean shaven to be a caveman, so we'll tend to that with this hair I found. I'm going to use Liquify again to warp it around his face, and we'll have to cast some shadows from his beard. That looks a lot more like a caveman. Lastly, we need to replace this dagger with something more appropriate in the form of a stone spear. Okay, this looks decent, but I feel like he should be pointing the spear more towards the lion, so I'll use a puppet warp to tilt his arm a bit. That's better. And finally, the lion's hair is cut out a bit too perfectly, so I'm gonna feather it towards the edges so the sky starts to show through. And that's a wrap. Me hunt lion. Before we move on, let me show you the difference that the lighting and color changes made to the image. Pretty crazy, right? Next up, we're traveling 20,000 years forwards to the time of the ancient Egyptians, and who better to turn into a rich pharaoh than MrBeast? Here's the video ideas. I built a pyramid, 1 versus 1 million gold sarcophagus, escaped this quicksand, win 10,000 gold, and I survived 100 days in the desert. I think I'll go with I built a pyramid. I'll start by cutting out this thumbnail of MrBeast smiling, and then place a pyramid in the background. Next, I found some Egyptian swag, and I'm gonna use the puppet warp tool to fit the clothes around him. I'll cut out the clothes where his face is in front, and put some shadows on both his face and the clothing to round it up. Looking lavish. I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins recently, and it showed me that the pyramids used to have some gold plating at the top. I'm going to incorporate that into our design by warping an image of gold and masking it out in the shape of a triangle. I think I made it way too large, but hey, it is MrBeast's pyramid after all. Whilst I do the shading for it, let me tell you the story of why there's no more gold at the top of the pyramids. Thieves stole it, and it also got reused for nearby buildings like palaces and mosques. That's all we have time for, but the shading turned out well. By the way, I've been thinking, there's no way they had perfectly white teeth back then, so I'm gonna make his teeth more yellow. Also, I want to add the MrBeast text to the thumbnail, and ChatGPT says it took about 20 years to build the Pyramid of Giza, so that's what I'll put. Okay, we have a problem. The pyramid just doesn't feel that big. I'm gonna bring in some people on camels and make them teeny tiny to give the size some perspective. I'm also gonna remove the bright colors from their clothes because they wouldn't have had those back in the day, and we'll throw in a dead tree and some shrubs for a bit of detail. I did cast some small shadows by them, but the desert sand reflects a lot of light, so the shadows won't be dark. For some final touches, I'm going to make the clothing brighter and use a bevel and emboss to make some inscriptions on the gold at the top of the pyramid, because they used to have that, apparently. And there it is, the thumbnail for I Built a Pyramid by Mr. Sphinx. I could definitely see this on MrBeast's channel. Lastly, we're traveling 4,000 years forwards to the golden age of pirates and creating an Airrack video. Mostly because I thought of the name Airrack, and now I can't not do it, you know? Here's the video ideas I came up with. I sailed the was 7 seas in a rowboat, I survived a shipwreck, I found Blackbeard's 1 million doubloons treasure, and 1 swashbuckler versus 100 mistresses. I'm gonna choose the rowboat one. We're definitely gonna need some rough seas to create tension in the thumbnail, and I'm probably gonna add some tentacles from a kraken later on. I can already tell this thumbnail is gonna be the most difficult to make. Firstly, I'll feather the bottom part of the boat so it looks like it's in the water. Then I found a picture of a guy with a great pirate shirt. For some reason I couldn't find any close-up pictures of people in rowboats, but I could make it work. Now our pirate obviously needs some legs, so I found some leather pants for him. I spent half an hour using the puppet warp tool to make them look real, and ended up with something decent, but we have another problem with this pirate, because that's just not how you row a boat. I cut the bottom part of the arms and moved them into a better position. We're trying to create a thumbnail with a lot of tension here, and I think a cloudy sky is going to help with that. Back to the arm dilemma, I'm going to use liquify to fill up the space where I cut out his hands, and then do a bit more adjusting to his legs. I found these paddles for him to row the boat with, but he'll need some hands for that. Okay, I just spent forever finding hands to hold the paddles, but I couldn't find any good ones, so I'm just gonna save that for future me to figure out. In the meantime, I'm gonna find a headshot of Airrack to put on the pirate. Here's a good one, and now I want a mouth that shows him being a bit more shocked because of the kraken that we're gonna add, and I think this'll work. He doesn't look that shocked. Maybe I'll make his eyes a bit wider and cut his eyebrows to put them at an angle. Maybe we need some darker creases on his face. Yeah, something's not right, and I'm also gonna save that for future me. The reason this thumbnail is giving me so much trouble is because YouTubers have the luxury of taking a picture in the pose they want, but unfortunately I don't have Airrack at my disposal, so I have to fake the shots, and it just takes 10 times longer. That gives me an idea though. I'll just import some pictures of my own hands to hold onto the oars. Nice, and they'll look a bit better with some lighting and wrists to go along with them. Okay, I realized that the mouth just does not convey shock at all, so I found a better one and I'm gonna swap it in. Nice, now I'll make some small changes like folding my fingers around the oars and fading them into the water. Okay, he needs some pirate boots, and I found this lovely pair that I'm gonna change the color of and tuck behind the wall. It's time for the kraken. I'll add a couple tentacles and fade them into the water. This is gonna add some much needed drama to the scene. Now I'm gonna take care of something I've been putting off. These oars on the side of the boat gotta go. And there we go. I wish it was that quick in real life. Listen, this is going on too long, you don't care. Let's speedrun the rest. Splashes for the tentacles, eye patch, pirate hat, filling up the random white bar on the boat. Also, I checked and pirates did have white paint, so it is historically accurate. Now for the part I've been seriously dreading. The lighting. It's a mess. We've got shadows and highlights all over the place because of the different pictures I used. 2 hours and a lot of procrastination later, the lighting's decent. Here's a before and after. I thought this was the final thumbnail at the time, but thank goodness I came back because I changed the sky, gave the tentacles some motion blur like they're erupting out of the water, and gave the scene a dramatic finish with a camera raw filter. At last, there it is. The final thumbnail out of the 3 ancient videos. Let me know which one was your favorite, and please subscribe. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video, and they're pretty good at recommending things, so check it out.